Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we hit the bowl season wish list. What's on the criteria sheet? Is it the location, Shreveport in December, anyone? Or the opponent, Power 5 or bust? Or the prestige of a Pop-Tart, Cheez-It, or Serve Pro? Also, close but no trident for Grant McCasland and the Red Raiders, but plenty to build on, leaving the Bahamas. That and more next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to see you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. And thanks as always to those making us their first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you, kicking off a brand new week, like with totally new possibilities, where the past shouldn't impact us at all. You know, this seems almost like a fresh start. We've got a lot to get to today. We will hit the hardwood today, as it was an interesting basketball weekend for Grant McCasland and the Red Raiders, as they did battle for Atlantis. Didn't bring home the trident, but maybe brought home some encouraging things to consider. And we'll talk about some of those reliables emerging for the Red Raiders. But of course, we also still have football to consider, as bowl game projections are coming in fast and furiously. And Chris, I don't know, this early on, before we've even gotten to a conference championship game weekend, I don't know how much stock to put into these just yet. I know as we sit here and talk about, say, the Big 12 Conference, I think you got 8 tie-ins and maybe 9 bowl-eligible teams. So there's always some funky math when we get to this point in the year. But how much do you really think, like when you see some of these projections come across, how much is still fluid? How much is close to cemented? How much should we buy into some of this stuff? Or what's still kind of out there left to be determined with Conference Championship Week and some other slots to be filled?
Yeah, the bowl game thing is tricky because there's politics involved. There's TV, folks involved. People can suggest to you that there's not these things involved, but this is the reality of it. And again, it's business. I mean, it nobody should get mad at it. And I think when bowls, there's a bit of a pecking order. The league can kind of get involved. I know the SEC does this. They kind of put all their teams in this jumble deal, and they try to decide what are the best matchups, and they will keep certain teams out of certain matchups because that's what those schools prefer. In other words, they're not going to put Texas and Texas A&M years ago in a bowl game, even though that's what everybody would want. I think the SEC would say, no, we're not going to do that. So what you have here is that I think you mentioned that you have all these tie-ins and you have one more eligible team in the league because Central Florida won over the weekend and beat Houston. So as bowls, because the Sugar Bowl, and then it's I think it's like Alamo, and then and on down it goes. I mean, Orlando and Houston kind of factor at the top, and then you kind of start working your way down to, Phoenix is in there, Memphis is in there, obviously Fort Worth is in there, Shreveport is in there, potentially Dallas. Although I think that the first responder armed forces are kind of, unless I'm just misunderstanding it, I think only one Big 12 team is going to go to one of those games. I think it's always going to be the Armed Forces in most years. And then I saw a projection yesterday that has you going to Montgomery, Alabama in the Camilla Bowl. Okay. And so that's when, bowls kind of can make we'll make a trade, make a swap. We don't, our conference doesn't have enough teams to fill it. You have extra. What do you think? Who you want to send us? I mean, there's all that kind of stuff. So and like Cowan, I think we remember this, but last year, guess what? You beat the University of Oklahoma. They went to the higher ranked bowl game than you did, according to the pecking order.
Yep.
They're in Orlando, the Cheez-It Bowl. And it's because, what do you think the ESPN folks wanted? Oklahoma and Florida State, pretty good to me. They took it, and it didn't matter, So if there's a matchup or a pecking order that puts Texas Tech in a situation to where you can keep them in their Metroplex, or you can, whatever that would benefit the crowd or the TV ratings, all things are on. And the last thing I'll say, if you want to move up in the pecking order, Texas has to go to the playoff. But you may be willing to just say, you know what, I'll take my chances. I can't stomach that. I'm out. But that's the reality of it. If they go to the playoff, everybody would move up a notch in the kind of bowl game or whatever that you would go to. And so, yeah, I'll just I'll leave that there.
There's a little hot bowl of cold chili to digest this Monday morning. Every fan's probably got their own kind of methodology as to how they would like to approach bowl season, or where they want their team to be. And I guess after a certain point for me, Chris, it's like pecking order, schmecking order. I don't give a crap that you didn't make it to the vaunted Cheez-It Bowl necessarily, but it's more so based in opponent, I think, intrigue. Like, I want a Power 5 matchup. South Florida, I just almost called them Southern Florida. That's not a thing. South Florida, who beat you in a bowl game, by the way, once upon a time. It's sad, but we do have a vendetta against the Bulls, I guess, in bowl season, but not doing a whole lot for me. And so the destination or the prestige, quote unquote, of the Pop-Tart or Cheez-It Bowl, or who gives a damn bowl, is pretty much lost on me, I guess. It's all about opponent, because, Chris, I think you could have gone to the same bowl last year and you face a non-SEC or non-Power 5, and I know that tie-in doesn't work that way, but just hypothetically, and you're not, pumping yourself up so much on what your finale was, but you beat an SEC program, you beat Ole Miss, someone who had a successful year, and you felt pretty good about that. So I don't know. Fans can agree or disagree, and would love to hear from you in the YouTube comments as to how you feel about the pecking order, but I really don't get caught up into that all that much. To me, it's about entertainment and some of what you can add to your offseason as far as the resume and what you can build on. And I don't know, am I right or wrong? I kind of feel like that ties in more to the opponent almost than anything, including the location or bowl name.
Yeah, I think because I've seen Troy, I think the Air Force. I've seen Cal. Okay, to answer your Power 5 deal. I think based on where you're at, I'm going to be semi-surprised if you get a Power 5 opponent at this point. But
it seems like long odds.
Yeah, but I just don't know. It's just because like I said, there's different reasons for why matchups get put together and all those things. But I'll just say this: I think Texas Tech, like the institution, would love to avoid playing on the 16th if they can, especially because I think the only option there is the one in Shreveport. It has nothing to do with against the Independence or Shreveport or anything, but it's because your basketball team plays in Fort Worth on the same night. And typically institutions or athletic departments try to do everything they can to avoid their programs playing at the same time, because it hurts both viewing audiences, it hurts both crowds, it hurts everything. It's cannibalization. So I don't know if you can have some say-so there at all. They're not going to change the kick time or the tip time there, I don't think. But that is something that I think worth noting there, that if you could end up being playing on anything other than December the 16th, I think you would probably prefer it. But if this is what they pick, then this is what you're going to go do. And then you'll just kind of have to figure it out, because I think they would love for fans to be able to attend both, and you simply would not be able to if you get picked for the Independence Bowl.
And just something else to add to this before we move on to hoops. I think it was late last night I saw from a Los Angeles Times reporter a suggestion that UCLA actually could be headed to Independence instead of Cal. Cal could be going to the LA Bowl, whatever that is. Something they play at SoFi, I believe. I don't know how these mechanisms work, but there was a lot of steam behind actually the Bruins heading out to the Independence, and UCLA possibly could be an opponent there for Texas Tech. Give me Power 5 anything all day and day. And if it's the Cal Golden Bears, suit Aaron Rodgers crippled behind up. I'd love to have another crack at that guy as well. Maybe Marshawn Lynch too. But I'm P5 or bust as far as the opponent. Let us know how you feel, what you really want to see come together for Texas Tech in the YouTube comments. All right, Chris, let's get to Grant McCaslin and company's trip to paradise, which I feel like they just rubbed in our faces far too much. I didn't get any pictures of Jeff Haxton on the beach suntanning or anything like that, but I felt like the paradise talk, a little much for us stuck back here in the 806. Anyway, some encouraging things leaving your trip to the battle for Atlantis. You get off to a rocky start. You compete pretty well and show some fight with Villanova, the eventual tournament champion, but you lose that game. And then you get into a rock fight with Northern Iowa that was just kind of a wild one to behold, but you gut it out, and courtesy of a Pop Isaacs game winner, you win the game. And then I don't know what I anticipated necessarily. I think I had some thoughts about us obviously winning the game against Michigan, but boy, howdy, you control it from tip to finish, and you kind of make the Wolverines look bad in doing so. So you come back to the LBK with some encouraging signs. What was it that was sort of your big picture takeaway, or things that you're going to be thinking about leading into the next ball game after you go 2-1 on the weekend? First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime, and you shouldn't have to sweat it out when buying tickets to your favorite events, and with Gametime, you won't, because it's always a breeze. Using the Gametime app, where you're going to find killer last-minute deals, views from every seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats for any event. The fastest, easiest way to buy tickets, and not just fast, but it's also secure and simple to use when you download the Gametime app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime by downloading the Gametime app, creating an account, and then use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use our promo code Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. What was it that was sort of your big picture takeaway, or things that you're going to be thinking about leading into the next ball game after you go 2-1 on the weekend?
Well, your only loss was to the eventual Battle for Atlantis champ in the Villanova. I think that's a positive. I think I saw that Villanova has won that tournament 3 times. They seem to they seem to be pretty good at the round ball. But they ended up beating, I think, Memphis for the championship, and so I was a bit concerned, I'm sure, like most, when you're down most of that game versus Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa does not have a good record. You're thinking you can't drop to 0-2 in this deal. It's going to be I guess, perceived as a bad loss if you drop it. And then you go on this, I don't know, was it like a 23-2 or I think it was some big run is what it ended up with. I think it finished ultimately as like a 14-1 run to win it with Pop off the glass. And it's like you found something. You grinded, but then you kind of found something that clicked. And I think what clicked was, and it carried over into the next game, is that you quit turning the ball over. You know, I think you had 17 turnovers in those 2 games combined. So about 8 to 9-ish right there, 8.5 a game in those final 2. And it's amazing how much easier the sport is whenever you know, and Grant, I think, is going to live with some of these turnovers just because he wants his team to run. I think it's a struggle to score at times in the half court for this team. And I think he wants them to get up and down a bit and take some chances and try to score in transition. And with that, sometimes you get too sped up. You try to thread a needle on a pass and it doesn't work. But that was the one thing that if you can continue and build off of that. The other thing is Devin Cambridge really started to be a bit more selfish and hunt his shot a bit more and like try to be more of a factor on offense, because he's like Daren Williams, in my opinion. They are both, I guess the word would be unselfish. They just kind of help and do a variety of different things, but at some points those guys are going to have to be more selfish and score because Pop can only do so much. Joe's giving you everything he's got. You know, Warren Washington is not, really, he's kind of similar. He's so worried about the rebounds and doing a good job protecting the rim and all that. But I think you need Cambridge, and you need Daren Williams, and you need Chance McMillan to continue to score. But I thought Devin Cambridge kind of was the best game he'd had against Michigan. But it was so weird, too, because Namari Burnett, do we remember him? Your McDonald's All-American? It's like this sums up college athletics these days. He is 2 schools removed because he spent a lot of time at Alabama, and they had some serious runs under Nate Oates and all that. Now he's at Michigan, and he's looking at this Texas Tech team, which he started out with. They're 2 head coaches removed from when he was there. There's not one player, coach, anybody that's over there at all that was ever, I guess, the trainer, Mike Neal. Okay.
Okay, Mike's the carryover.
Yeah, Mike Neal, the Tech's trainer, does a phenomenal job. But I mean, that's just wild to me. And here he is playing in Michigan or for Michigan, and you're just working him over. It's just, but it was kind of a whole full circle deal and all that. So anyway, it's just kind of wild. But that's a good win. I mean, in your quad 2 record right now is 1-1. Neutral court and Villanova down, Michigan up, right? So you're 1-1 in those deals, and but I thought it was a good weekend for you, man. 2-1, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, and I don't know what I anticipated after the loss to Villanova, but surprised me a little bit. Turned out a little bit better than I probably anticipated. And speaking of what you might have anticipated coming into the season, trend lines and maybe some reliable things emerging for Texas Tech after a handful of games. And I'm sure we all had this pegged for a projection you could take to the bank. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and you can spice up the action and keep the sports flames stoked this winter with America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook of Locked On. There's nothing nicer than cuddling up with a warm prop bet or player parlay. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action with their safe, secure, and easy-to-use app where it's all at your fingertips. And, of course, when you win with FanDuel, you're always paid instantly. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's right. That's $150 coming your way if your team wins. You'd be a fool to not take a bite out of that. So get to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today for your shot at $150 in bonus bets with any $5 moneyline bet that hits. With FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Joe Toussaint as your leading scorer to this point in the season. And by the way, the dude with the handiest by far assist to turnover ratio on the team, 18-9. Last 2 games, as Chris mentioned, were the first time this year that Texas Tech has been in single digits from a turnover standpoint. But I don't know what I expected out of Toussaint, Chris, but I don't know that I anticipated him being a leading scorer. I don't know if it will last or if that's even the best thing for Texas Tech for him to have to do it. But, man, got to credit him so far for making it happen. And I don't know where we would be without Joe Toussaint to this point in the season.
He's tough, and he's very crafty with his offense. I think he wanted a bigger role on offense in general, which is why I think he made the jump and came to Texas Tech. He's been better than advertised. I think you thought you're getting a point guard with some toughness and all these things, but I don't know if we ever, the West Virginia people would tell you, man, if you're going to need him to score consistently, but that's kind of what he's done here. Can he keep this up? When you start to play, because he's playing, I think if we look this up, I think he's playing about 32, 33 minutes a night.
32.7.
I mean, he's rarely coming off the court. So that is going to be tricky, but he's shooting it at a high percentage. I tell you what I love is his assist to turnover ratio.
Yeah.
Because, he's got twice as many assists as he does turnovers. And so, because, think about what he's doing for you. Let's just go down the list. He's your best on-ball defender. He doesn't take a possession off. He shoots it at a high percentage. He takes care of the ball on offense. And then he's kind of an Iron Man, and he's checking a lot of boxes, and boy, it's fun to have like a senior leader, veteran type that can kind of carry, because there's going to be some rough times that come up and some adversity and all that, but he's the kind of guy that can keep it calm. He's been in the Big 10, he's been in the Big 12, knows what to expect, knows how to get you back on track. But he's been He's been better than I ever would have thought, and he is fun to watch compete, man.
Yeah, he is. I think it's something that really the rest of the team can feed off of. It's palpable, his energy, and some of those Big 12 nights at United Supermarkets Arena. I think he's going to be a lightning rod for the fan base to gather around and get fired up about. But so far, some of these additions, we've mentioned many of them. Obviously, talking about the guys that are rowing the boat. Pop Isaac's essentially the exclusion from that, the returner. But whether it's Toussaint, Daren Williams, Cambridge, Washington, even McMillan, who we're still wanting to see a little bit more consistently, but have seen some flashes of. Been pretty happy with some of these guys so far, Chris. And, like a guy like Daren Williams, and tell me if I'm getting confused again, but former Mountain West Conference Freshman of the Year. This is the Nevada cat. I don't know what I anticipated, but when you see an accolade like that in a lesser conference, you're kind of wondering, okay, how's this going to translate, or, how long is this going to take? Much less for a guy that's still obviously young in his college basketball career. But Williams is one of those guys that has, I don't know if it's a total surprise, but he's kind of wowed me in a way with what he's been able to do for the team so far, averaging double-digit scoring, but also 8 rebounds per game. The dude has been a little bit better, I think, or checked a few more boxes possibly than I anticipated coming into the season.
Yeah, I think you have. It's funny because you have several double guys. Because I think Warren Washington is that, Daren Williams is that. I think Devin Cambridge is that. From the standpoint of they can approach on a lot of nights double-digit points and rebounds, and it's not gonna shock anybody. Think Kasib Powell when I tell you some of these guys with the way, when it's
Kasib Powell.
Yeah, because he just kind of. He's never going to go for 30, but he also is just like you look at the stat sheet and there's just the crooked numbers everywhere, like steals, assists. He's just kind of he's heavily involved in what they would term a floor game. But yeah, I think Daren Williams is certainly he's just kind of an under the radar guy. You have a lot of unselfish types that are going to at times on some nights they're going to have to be more selfish, and that's why I think Grant wants to run. Because I think, and that's why it's okay at some points getting shots up early in possessions because you've got so many guys that can go get it and initiate offense that way with a putback and, an offensive rebound and things like that. But I think you've got a lot of guys that it's easy to see why they want to run because all these athletes, I'll tell you the other thing that kind of maybe emerged here in Atlantis, and we were kind of wondering, personnel related. It's very clear through the first 3 games that, before you made this trip, you were very comfortable with 7 players in your rotation. And after that, it was just a question mark. How much deeper can we go? Can we go any further? And some foul trouble and some nights and matchups are going to dictate you don't have any choice but to go further than that. But Kerwin Walton started to emerge a little bit in the Atlantis with some more and more minutes. I think he played 15 or 16 versus Michigan. I think he played some versus Northern Iowa. And at times he was the only other player that played other than the 7 that we've talked a lot about, those starters, and then Chance McMillan and Lamar Washington. But if Kerwin Walton can continue to kind of come along a little bit and just defend, that's really what I think Grant struggles with is that, yes, we know he can shoot. He's a good athlete. He's got some experience and age on him, but he's got to be able to defend. If he'll continue to do that, he's going to earn more and more minutes, which it really eases the load on a variety of people. So that hopefully that continues, and it could go away just as much as it kind of started. So, just keep an eye on that. But they're looking for that next player to kind of step in and soak up some of these minutes, but you got to be able to be a two-way player if you come in. Because why does Chance can score and he can defend? Lamar, he's tough, he can defend and all that, can score on occasion as well. But that's the thing with Kerwin Walton, he's got to be able to provide you, something on the defensive end.
Come on with it, Kerwin. Kerwin Walton has been like an oven that's been preheating for a year at this point in time. We're ready to cook, dude. Let's go ahead and slide in the dish. We're ready to cook. All right, speaking of cooking, what you're getting next is a trip to Hinkle Fieldhouse. Got an interesting one coming up on Thursday night. We'll have plenty more on that matchup as we get closer to it. But it's the Butler Bulldogs, 5-2 to this point in the season. Had a close loss to Florida Atlantic, who's playing some good basketball. Lost by 20 to Michigan State. There's a lot of context to that program and to that location, Chris. As for the basketball, not quite sure of what to make of Butler just yet, but we'll talk a lot more about it as we roll through the week. But man, this should be a fun trip for the Red Raiders.
Yeah, and I'll save my thoughts about Butler and the whole Hoosiers thing for later on in the week, because I'm genuinely excited about seeing that. I think Hoosiers is one of, if not the best sports movie of all time. I'm a mark for it. Sorry. And David stuck a hand in the bag, pulled out a stone and slung it. I can remember it was like, it's just, yeah. So I'm excited about that one. And this will be a tough one, man. This will be a tough one. Butler's got, they've got some guys that can go. And anyway, but it's one of final two tests, I think, that are really kind of a good RPI or net opportunity, with the Vanderbilt being the other one on a neutral court. But this is the one true road game, and this is part of that Big East, Big 12 challenge. So you'll get a Big East team that comes your way next year.
Got to take advantage of these, man, because otherwise it's Omaha, Oral Bob, UT Arlington, Sam Houston, and North Alabama coming to the LBK before you get to Big 12 play. So definitely want to take advantage of an opportunity to emphasize the resume. And yeah, I mean, Coach McCaslin, if he's not taking a tape measure, you're biffing it, right? It may seem cornball, but you got to take the tape measure.
And one that you wind up. Yeah,
it's got to be one from
can you even find one of those anymore? Is it? Yeah.
Yes, in the bottom of my toolbox, Chris, as a matter of fact, because every time I pull it out and try to use it, and then it doesn't go back up automatically, I'm thinking, why the hell do I get this thing out? And I throw it right back in the bottom of the toolbox for another year. All right, we got a whole lot to get to this week. Plenty of bowl game considerations, getting ready for Texas Tech and Butler, and the coaching carousel that is spinning wildly here in the great state and beyond. We'll get to some impact Texas Tech way and Big 12 way on some of those things left to be decided as well coming up this week. So hope you will join us for that. And I'm talking specifically to you, Chris. Hope to see you here once again tomorrow, man. Thanks for the time as always.
Enjoyed it. We'll be back. Yeah, crazy time. Keep your head on a swivel.
Yes.
These days, this week, with a variety of things. I'll just mention that to you. So keep your head on the old proverbial swivel.
Yeah, I left one thing off the list from yesterday, right? Roster fluidity as we get into portal time here locally.
Yeah. Yep, that's kind of what I was talking. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Be aware. Be very aware. Coming, going, all kinds of stuff. But yeah, just a crazy time in the profession with coaches, and then it's domino effect, and there's obviously a lot going on in the state that we'll get to potentially as the week goes along here.
Yeah, and so it's not just related to a game, but even with the roster, you might tell us to keep keep
definitely.
What's the line?
Hope. Keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive. That's why he's the best, folks. It rolls off his tongue smooth as a whistle, just not as smooth off of mine. All right, for Chris, I'm Casey. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you back here for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.